When you travel southwards on the African continent, you might find yourself in this country. This is Zimbabwe, a country with creative youths. In today's video, we talk to a gentleman that has worked with youths under different umbrellas.
Brian Nyankwande.
He is the Executive Director of the National Youth Council of Zimbabwe, the office in charge of 67% of the population of Zimbabwe. Mr. Brian Nyankwande is not only a proud youth advocate, but also a dynamic youth leader determined to empower the youth in Zimbabwe.
Having seen that for young people to thrive, they need financing. So there's a bank that is responsible for young people.
Is it already in operation, the bank?
Yes, it's operating.
It's already been established.
It's established, empowerment.
Your task is simple. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon so that you can join us in today's video. Together, let us explore how Mr. Brian Nyankwande is influencing and empowering the youth of Zimbabwe and what other African countries can learn from his leadership. Africa needs you.
Welcome to Channel 63, a network that looks at the future of our continent, the Africa we want. And we discuss issues to do with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and the Agenda 2063, particularly those that concern youth and women, as well as faith-based institutions. And today we happen to be in the Republic of Zimbabwe, right here in the office of the National Youth Council, and we are privileged to be talking to the acting director, the person of Mr. Brian Nyankwande, who is the current director for Zimbabwe National Youth Council for the past 3 years. Brian, it's an honor to have you on our set today.
Thank you very much and welcome.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's begin our conversation, by knowing who you are. What has been the journey so far? Where have you come from? And where are you now? And where are you taking us to?
Thank you very much. As you have said, I'm the acting director for Zimbabwe Youth Council. I've served the government of Zimbabwe for the past 18 years. And I wish to say that the common denominator has always been young people. In my previous appointment, I served in the Ministry of Justice, where we did a project around youth diversion from them being considered as hardcore criminals, where we avoid young people from going to the proper court setup to a diverted way of treating them as first-time offenders. And that has helped in the sense that young people are not considered as criminals. They are given a second chance. From there on, I was promoted to the Ministry of Youth's Indigenization and Economic Empowerment there, which is now the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Development and Vocational Training, where I've served as a Deputy Director for Vocational Training, where we imparted young people with various skills, psychomotor skills, be it your building, which I feel are the skills that will take Zimbabwe to Vision 2030 and Africa to Agenda 2063. Right. I think for Africa to prosper in its aspirations, we need a broad skills base, which I think the Ministry of Youth is ready to do so.
I've heard Zimbabwe 2030. Tell us a bit about it.
So Vision 2030 is our national economic blueprint, where it's been divided into two phases. Right. The phase one being from 2020 to 2025, and then from 2025 to 2030. The goal being that Zimbabwe should be an upper middle income economy by that year. Okay. So these are the aspirations that our leaders, His Excellency the President, has aspired the nation to become by Vision 2030. I also feel that Vision 2030 actually feeds into Agenda 2063. Absolutely. Because it positions Zimbabwe as an economic giant. And also from that, we are able to also feed into the continental vision, which is Agenda 2063, where we have, as a continent, aspirations for Africa to become the giant that it has always aspired to.
So now that you are in the office of the National Youth Council as the acting director for the council, how do you feel the heat knowing that what percentage of the population are youth?
Okay, so maybe I need to also highlight what the Youth Council is and
Yes.
how it fits into the national goals of Zimbabwe.
Absolutely.
So the Zimbabwe Youth Council is a quasi-government institution which is enacted by an act of parliament. The Zimbabwe Youth Council is amended in 2001.
Okay.
But the idea about the National Youth Council is to organize young people for them to be recipients of empowerment initiatives.
Right.
The National Youth Council is, I think, the channel through which government can take information to the young people and through which young people can send messages to government. So we are the link between the government and the young people.
Right.
So the idea has been Zimbabwe is a youthful population of about 67%. So what that means is it will be very difficult for government to reach out to each individual young people. So the Youth Council was created such that we put young people into formations, into associations in the various sectors of economy, be it agriculture, be it tourism, be it mining, and form them into groups that can then allow them to be beneficiaries of the empowerment initiatives that the government has for them. So we do various projects that are the functions of the Youth Council is first and foremost we are supposed to register and coordinate the activities of youth associations and clubs. We are also responsible for designing programs and projects that can then enable young people to be employed. You would know that Africa is a whole. I think one of the major challenges that we have is unemployment and underemployment. So the Youth Council is specifically positioned to be proposing to the government what can be done in terms of alleviating the issues around unemployment and underemployment. So we are also responsible for representing the government of Zimbabwe on any activities around youth issues, be they international, regionally, or internationally. We are also created to commemorate important youth days. Recently, on the 21st of February, as you would know, was the former president of the country, Robert Mugabe's birth, which was 21 February. We recently held a successful National Youth Day, which was commemorated in one of the provinces where we brought all the young people together for the commemoration. So the Youth Council is also created for that. And last but not least, we are the link, as I've said, for government to know the issues that are bedeviling the young people.
I see.
Yeah.
We'll go into the specific program that you are running. But the question I wanted to find out is, now you said 63%? 67% of the population of Zimbabwe are youth.
Yes.
I guess age below 35.
Yes.
All right. So in that, what percentage of that constitute women? Out of the 65% or 66% you are talking about?
I wouldn't know the precise, but obviously from the previous census, what we have observed is women are more than men.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm asking this because as we go into the specifics of your programs, I'm interested in knowing what percentage of your program, or how are your programs, skewed in terms of the gender, men, boys, women, and guys, and all of those things. But let me go back to your celebration that you did for the commemoration of the founding leader. 66% of the population are young people. What does that tell you about the future of Zimbabwe with regard to youth empowerment?
Okay, thank you very much. So what we say is, for our aspirations as a nation, the Vision 2030, we feel the young people carry the energy to take us to that aspiration.
Right.
And I also feel young people in Africa as a whole are the future.
Okay.
What that means is, as a dividend, young people carry the energy.
Sure.
For us to attain whatever we want to attain, it is placed on the shoulders of the young people.
Absolutely.
Our president is well known for a mantra that says "Nika inowakwa newe," which means that a country is built by its own people.
Absolutely.
And for us, we feel the own people of this country are the young people, because they have the energy, they have the resources, they have the innovation, they have the success that will take us to wherever we want. If it's agriculture, we want to see more of young people taking a role, playing a role in terms of giving the skill, giving the energy, giving the expertise that will be required for us to come out from where we are to where we want to be. So the recent commemorations that took place in Masvingo, to be precise, on the Robert Mugabe National Youth Day happened. We took stock. This day was set aside as a day to commemorate the contribution that young people play in terms of us attaining our aspirations. And we brought all young people from all over the country. We also extended invitations to regional political parties who are youthful to come and commemorate with us. We had people coming from as far as Burundi, South Africa, Mozambique, Botswana, and Namibia for the celebrations. And key about that celebrations was we wanted to take stock in terms of what it is that young people of Zimbabwe have done to their country. And what happened there is various ministry came before the day, the 20th. We had a youth business forum where various speakers came to share, government policymakers came to share in terms of what is unfolding from their respective ministries or enterprises for the young people, the opportunities there of which young people can tap from. So be it mining, be it agriculture, tourism, the presentations then came out that young people should play a critical role in terms of contributing to their nation. And on the day, His Excellency gave us a speech around what government of Zimbabwe is. But of importance to note is the empowerment initiatives which were left at one of our vocational training centers. As you would know, the Ministry of Youth is also responsible for superintending over 48 vocational training centers. Okay. So this year in particular, we wanted to bring young people to a vocational training center where they can be able to see
what's happening there.
Yeah, what's happening there, the skills they can partake in terms of contributing to their nation. And so various ministries then gave to His Excellency various empowerment initiatives. Ministry of Agriculture donated tractors. They came up with fish ponds, which can be used as training equipment for the young people in that place. So it was a very successful day where we had all young people from all provinces coming and commemorating.
What number were there in terms of numbers?
It was plus or minus 30,000.
Wow.
Yes.
30,000?
30,000.
For one day?
For one day.
How effective was this? Was it then? If you have that huge number of people, was it just for fanfare?
It wasn't for fanfare. It was youth exhibitions, young people presenting to other young people what they are doing, those that are into business.
Also, there were clusters of programs happening around.
And then the president giving his official speech.
Speeches. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's go into the specifics of the programs. Tell us exactly how your council is empowering the young people, both for 2030, then for 2063, as far as Africa Continental Free, Agenda 2063 is concerned. So what are the key pillars in terms of operational programs that you guys are involved in?
Okay, so I think what's very important is the signing of the African Continental Free Trade Area was in 2008.
Right.
And after 2018, COVID hit us.
Right.
And a lot of things happened around COVID. Sure. And one of the critical things that we as council was met with was the issue of drug and substance abuse after COVID-19 and how our young people are being wasted because of that. So what we've done is we also approached the government of Zimbabwe to say that of those that were hardest hit by COVID-19, it was the young businesses. So what we did was we then carried out a survey, and we observed that young people were highly informalized in terms of operating their business. And one of the key programs that we sought out to do after COVID-19 was to ensure that young businesses were formalized. So we partnered with the Department of Companies and Deeds to try try and formalize young business, because before we even invite investors, even from the African free continental traders, I think what they would want to see is how organized the young people are. So for as long as they are operating their business in an unformalized way, no one will take it serious, that kind of business. So what we wanted to ensure was to make sure that the young people's businesses and enterprises were formalized. So what we have done is we've gone all out in terms of making sure that they register their business at a subsidized rate. We've also introduced to them what we call Tax Wednesday, where we bring the revenue authorities to come and try and teach young people that they play a critical role in terms of revenue collection for the nation. So they should be their businesses should be tax compliant. But other than that, what you find is as a nation in Africa, we are besought with a lot of problems that emanate in the country. Young people lack skills. Young people, as I've said, are highly informal. They lack training. They lack financing. So some of our programs, as the Youth Council, being the channel that then gives government and tell government the issues of young people, is to make sure that all those issues are addressed. So what you would want to know maybe we are the only African country where we have advocated to government to have a bank that is specifically for young people. We have what we know as Empower Bank in Zimbabwe, which is a youth bank that is solely for the young people. It is an initiative of the Zimbabwe Youth Council together with ministry, having seen that for young people to thrive, they need financing. So there's a bank that is responsible for young people.
Is it already in operation, the bank?
Yes, it's operating.
It's already been established.
It's established. Empower Bank. If you go on your website now and punch in Empower Bank, you'll see its branches that are scattered all over. So they're solely responsible for ensuring that young businesses are financially equipped. So that is one of the programs that we have come out, and we are also in the process of bringing a lot of stakeholders. What you would know is youth issues are not just government issues. We need to bring a number of stakeholders in terms of addressing. So we have partnered entities like Old Mutual in terms of skilling the young people. Recently, they had a value creation competition, which we are trying to also see where we can plug in to say the startups for young people, how can they be funded? So Old Mutual, being a financial guru, will come in terms of also financing and augment the efforts that are already being done by banks like the Empower Bank. You would also find that we also have a women's bank. So those that are between 15 and 35 that are women can also approach the women's bank. So we have created that sort of value chain and the sort of pool of resources to ensure that young people startups are well financed. But what we've also done is government as a whole has various initiatives that they're doing. So together with the Ministry of Youth, we've gone on to advocate for government youth focal desks that are responsible for every ministry has got someone or a department that is responsible for accepting and dealing with issues that concern young people. So if you go to the Ministry of Mines now, there's a desk that is set aside where young people can go and download the empowerment initiatives that lies with the Ministry of so this has been an initiative of the Youth Council, but also on a participation role, one of our flagship programs is the Junior Parliament, where we bring in the young people, give them a platform to converse and share ideas with their senior counterparts. So the Zimbabwean model of the Junior Parliament is a replica of the Senior Parliament, which is officially opened by His Excellency every year. To date, we have carried out over 30 sessions of the Junior Parliament. So though the young people that are school-going are elected in their provinces, they become junior parliamentarians, they get an opportunity to meet their senior counterparts. What this does is it helps us as a way of
grooming them.
Yeah, grooming them and also getting the issues that affect the young people in their day-to-day living. So those are some of the projects that we are doing as the Youth Council, With UNICEF, we have recently started a program which is known as the Second Chance, where we say that those that would have not excelled, what is it that we can do in terms of giving them a second chance? Up and above that, the ministry which we report to also superintends over 48 vocational training centers that then gives skills of various sorts to the young people.
Interesting.
Yes.
So I must commend you. I mean, this is very, very interesting. As I mentioned to you when we were having a chat, we have just come back from Nairobi where we interviewed your counterpart. And they are leveraging technology in a massive way. How is technology coming in all of these things that you are doing?
Thank you very much. I think the future of Africa also lies in the innovation and innovation
Absolutely.
in technology. So young people, as I have alluded to, should take strides in that. So we have, I think we are very grateful to the wisdom that our president has. The president has created in university. In fact, we have moved from education 3.0 to 5.0, which is education with works. So what he has done is in various institutions of higher learning like your university, he's created innovation hubs, which young people are taking lead. I would want to point out that you would know that the PPEs that we were using in COVID,
Right.
while we would import most of them, our university took strides in terms of coming up with inventions of how we could leverage on some of their innovations in coming up with the PPEs that will be used to alleviate the challenges we had in COVID-19. So the universities have created what are called innovation hubs, where young people can go innovate, and these can be scaled up and bring in investors for those ideas that will grow. So as a nation, we are taking lead in terms of creating space where young people can do their innovations and the country can leverage on that. In our vocational training centers also, we have partnered various universities in terms of innovations. I think our vocational training centers have partnered the Harare Institute of Technology, which is one of the universities, to come up with inventions that suits the kind of schools that are given at vocational training center. I think one of the critical challenges we have as a nation is on how our farmers that are scattered in the rural areas can deal with post-harvest losses. And it does not take too much of inventions in terms of coming up with inventions that can deal with post-harvest. And we have come up with very good inventions in terms of coming up with solar dryers that are being created at our vocational training centers. A lot of development partners have also come on board to partners to have such inventions, because I feel that before we even talk of exporting our skills, our vocational training centers should play a role in terms of solving issues that emanate from their communities. And our vocational training centers are taking lead. Solar installations, post-harvest technologies that can help to contain the harvest that they have. Our VTCs have taken lead in that.
I mean, listening to you and all the programs that you are talking about, one would obviously get the impression that when it comes to even youth unemployment, it does not exist in Zimbabwe. Is that the case? Because if you are doing all these things, as you were saying, with a youth empowerment bank, which is very innovative, how is the youth unemployment situation in Zimbabwe at the moment?
Well, it's unfortunate that the statistics are not very pleasing.
Yeah, what's the percentage?
I think we sit at, is it 20% unemployment, the official one? I wouldn't know of the unofficial one. Yeah. But just to say that, as I have alluded to, that youth issues are not just government issues.
Of course.
So what you would find is those efforts that we're having as a nation are not enough to be able to curtail the entire problem of youth unemployment and youth underemployment. Sure. So what we need is to bring all stakeholders on board to make sure that the efforts that we do can be able to deal. I would want to give you a statistics that is very critical in terms of our education system here in Zimbabwe. you find that we have an exam that all the young people sit, which is called O-level.
O-level.
And of that exam, I think about plus or minus 300 of the young people sit for that exam. And those that progress or that comes out with the pass
to advance to the next level
are below 30%.
All right.
So if it's 200, if it's 300, what it means is 270 of those young people, 1,000, remain unskilled and they have nowhere to go.
Right.
So I've spoken to the vocational.
Is that not where your vocational skills come in?
Yes, but they're not enough.
They're not enough.
They're not enough.
About
48, and they're spread across the country. Sure. We would want a scenario where we can have the vocational training centers spread even to district level, because what we have now, yes, we have the 10 provincial ones. We also have scattered district, but you see the appetite for vocational training skills remains unfulfilled, and we would want different stakeholders to come on board in terms of ensuring that young people are skilled and they have maybe a livelihood option from the schools that they would have attend. So the issue around unemployment remains a big challenge to the nation, and we would want different stakeholders to come on board to ensure that young people are gainfully employed. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm encouraged because I see a lot of innovation in what the National Youth Council, and I'm hoping this is not political talk. And that is not something that you are saying. Because, I mean, a lot of times we hear these things and people talk about them, but you go on the ground and it's a totally different thing.
Sure.
So
the Youth Council is a very apolitical institution. Okay. We deal with young people from across the divide.
Right.
We register all the political youth wings, be they opposition, be they the ruling party. We give an opportunity to every young people as Zimbabweans.
I like that. So let's talk about some meaty issues. Let's start off with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. You said you have tried to formalize the youth-led SMEs. How is the intra-trade policy of the government, or how is National Youth Council involved in intra-trade of the youth-led enterprises in Zimbabwe? Is it easy for a young person doing business here to trade with the neighboring countries? You know, the taxations, the barrier restrictions, and all of that. How is the National Youth Council involved in all this?
Okay, thank you. I think that's very critical in that what we do at the end of the day, in terms of all this that I've alluded to, the innovations, is at some point would need to create markets for young people. And I think the African Free Trade Area becomes very handy, and we are very excited about this. And what we have done as Youth Council is also to ensure that young people are positioned to be beneficiaries of the African Free Trade Area. So as a nation, we have made a lot of efforts in terms of lobbying to government to create the free space that young people can participate in that free African Free Continental Trade Area. So one of the critical things that we have advocated for is to make sure that the ease of doing business in Zimbabwe is an index that we are proud of, and also to try and remove the bottlenecks within the nation before we even go regional, within the nation, to ensure that if a young people want to open a business, are they able to do it in the shortest time possible? So this is why we have brought on board the formalization process. So while it will take 4 to 5 months for a young person to open a business, now with our intervention as a youth council, it takes just about 2 weeks for the young people to open their business.
Maybe 2 weeks is a lot of time.
Yeah, and we are further improving. In the time of technology. Yeah, we are further improving on
anyway,
that.
From 5 months to 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. So I think by the time you come back next year, we have reduced it to just minutes online.
I'm coming next week.
Yeah, sure. So what you find is, yes, that we have done. And what we are also advocating is through our youth policy, we have a youth policy that speaks to how we can ease it up for the young people in terms of them being business people. We also want to make sure that the government of Zimbabwe is alive to youth economic zones.
Right.
Whenever there is business happening, young people should be the first to be considered. You would find that Zimbabwe is open for business, and we have had a lot of investors in terms of mining coming here. What we want to ensure is of the entire people that will be working at a particular enterprise, the greater part, 25% of that quota should be for young people.
So like local content?
Yes, for young people. And then having done that, we then want to open it. But what you would find is young people are very migratory. So if anything, we would want to ensure that if ever they move as a business, as individuals, as whoever, is the environment conducive for the young people?
But Brian, let me pause you there. I mean, I like the aspect of involvement of young people and all of that. And I'm sure you're familiar with the Zimbabwe Black Empowerment Policy, where black folks are supposed to be, almost in every boardroom, whatever. Are you also doing anything to address the mindset of these young people? You're dealing with the population today that think that if you plant a corn today, you must have the harvest tomorrow. Skills development. I mean, the guy is employed in a mining company, but he has next to nothing. As far as when it comes to mining expertise, what is the council doing about to address the skills gap? Since you are advocating for their employability and all of that.
I think, as you have said, young people of today want quick results, and I think, but the teaching that we've been getting from our president, His Excellency the President, Comrade Emerson Damzum, is young people have to work for things. They have to be patient. They have to have the grind in terms of achieving results. And so what I think as Zimbabwe Youth Council, in terms of that, we have exposed young people to different mentors that have walked the journey before.
How do you do that? We are talking of 66% of the population. You have enough mentors to mentor all of them?
So we create symposiums, we create lectures, we create interactions of business people with young people.
Not just rhetorics?
They are not. Some of them we have follow-throughs in terms of what would have been delivered, where we then expose these young people to some kind of training, where they take courses in terms of what it is that is required, to ensure that young people understand that things don't come overnight.
Right.
We have to put effort, you have to put in the hours for you to be an expert in whatever you do. It's not, the end result should be in the toil that you put into that. So we expose young people to different trainings. We expose young people to, we group them, we expose them to mentors. For instance, our youth minister is a very successful business person. So whenever we get half the chance, we ask him to also deliver how he has achieved what he has.
I guess
over hard work.
I like the novelty of the idea, but I think what I'm yearning to hear is the systems you have put in place to ensure that these things are not just based on individually, accomplishment, but they are systematized, such that, let's say a guy leaves university, for example, or let's even go back to the 270 people who couldn't make it to the next level after writing the basic exam. Are there systems that they can be enrolled into, such that they will not be found as, dropouts, or if you like, non-essentials in society, but they can go through this system, come out, even though they may not have gone to the formal education, but they can do something. What are the programs? What are the systemic issues that the council has put in place? That's the kind of thing. Because I believe if the Minister for Youth is an accomplished businessman, yes, but look at his portfolio. How many young people would he be exposed to? How many young people would even have access to him? If he spoke on, whether on TV or whatever, how many people can? So I'm yearning to hear, for example, if the minister gave a speech, for example, is the council able to, to, if you like, craft that speech, break it down into digestible, chunks, maybe digitally, where it can be circulated on the social media for young people, young youth associations to digest it. That's the kind of thing. What are the programs that Brian's outfit is doing in that context.
Okay, noted. I think as Youth Council, we have a communications department that is solely responsible for what you are saying, like breaking it down. But also we work with different youth-led organizations that we expose our young people to.
Good.
We have some that are into mentoring. We have some that are into training. I have also spoken about coming on board of different stakeholders like the Old Mutual, who have different programs for the young people. But as the council, what we do is to try and be the platform in terms of pointing to the young people.
So you play a coordinating role.
And pointing to the young people that when they do then approach us, we then show them to the places which they should go in for getting this various information.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your empowerment bank. And I like the concept, to be honest with you. For a long time, I have been advocating for a youth bank at the continental level. And it's easy to do it, very, very easy to do it. So I'm happy that Zimbabwe has taken the lead because I'm interested. I'm excited about it. My whole idea, my interest is seeing a youth bank that can be owned by young people, mentored to manage it. And it's possible, it's doable. And what that will mean is that if somebody is in the university and is coming out and he has been trained in entrepreneurship or business, whatever, it's easier for them to start their own business. So walk us through. So I'm a young person in Zimbabwe. I have an idea to start a business. How do I assess funds from the bank, for example? Give us the practical processes.
Before the bank was created, the government has been giving out loans to young people in anticipation that the young people would use the money, grow it, and then pay back the bank. And that didn't happen. So the idea around the Empower Bank was to say, yes, we have young people that are into entrepreneurship, but what's lacking or maybe the missing link there is the financing of those.
Which is always the case.
Yeah. So what needed to happen is, at its inception, was to identify young people that were already doing something that needed funding. So if you were a startup, what would happen is you would approach the bank, present to them that I'm into manufacturing, mining. What I do require is finance.
Of course. Brian, hold on.
Yeah.
Manufacturing, mining. How can a young person go into mining? How can a young person go into manufacturing? Even adults are struggling in mining. How can you set up a bank for young people talking about mining and manufacturing? Come on, give us a practical example, my brother.
So we have young people that are into mining.
Between the age of 18 to 35?
Yes, we
into
do
mining?
Yes, we do have.
In Zimbabwe?
I can tell you that the majority of artisanal miners are young people.
Interesting.
Yes. So we do have young people that are into mining.
Okay.
We do have young people that are into manufacturing.
Okay.
That in the value chains of food processing.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So we have young people in all those sectors.
That's for Zimbabwe.
And the Youth Council is specifically responsible for ensuring that we get the data of all those young people and present to government to say these are the young people that we have.
Interesting.
So a typical example is the young people that is doing mining will probably require a small machine that can enable them to do the mining
effectively.
Yeah. So they would approach the bank and say, I've got, and the Ministry of Mines itself has been instructed by His Excellency to make sure that some quota is left for young people mining
for licensing.
Yeah, licensing of young people's mining activities. So what then happens is they approach the bank and they then present their case to the bank to say, I'm a young person, I would require this much of resources. Can the bank fund me? So the initial idea was the bank would then come in, instead of giving young people hard cash, the bank would procure the machine required thereof, and then give it to the young people. And the collateral, issues around collateral are big issues of young people. They do not have anything. So the bank would use that very same machine as collateral in the case of the young people not being able to pay.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this has been the case. And also, we have also realized that it's also easy to put them in groups, approach the bank for funding when they're in the groups. Right. And we as the Youth Council become sort of exercise like reference for the young people's fund.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And do you have a corresponding institution that helps them in capacity building? Because I mean, it's one thing to get the machine collateralized and all of that, but these things are dynamic. New things keep coming up and all of that. Is the Youth Council working with some parallel institution that constantly upgrades the skills of such entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So we, as the council, we've then discovered that the act that establishes us has limited that in terms of our operations.
Okay.
So we are only, I think our key mandate is to make sure that we register and coordinate the association. But we've also gone on to government to say that can we have our activities expanded? As I speak, there is a bill that's before Parliament that will create the National Youth Act, which then empowers the Youth Council to have a broader sphere of influence in terms of its reach to young people. So in that space, we would want to have maybe structures that then allows us that, whereas we have these young people that are in agriculture, what are the supporting?
I think if there's any lesson some of the National Youth Councils in other continent from different countries can learn, one of the things that I'll recommend for them to come here and perhaps, benchmark with you guys is the Youth Empowerment Bank. But my question is it not operating like a typical commercial bank? And why am I saying that? A lot of times, so many banks, so many projects are initiated by government that attracts funding from outside, from development partners. And yet when these monies come, they give it to commercial banks and say, look, administer this fund, and then the interest rate is something else. Even to assess it becomes a problem. So how different is your bank from operating as a typical commercial bank to the disadvantage of the young people, thereby defeating the whole strategic objective for which it was established?
Thank you very much for commending us. I think what you say, you raise very pertinent questions around young people being bankable. And I think for any other banks, I think the least they would want to see on their loan sheet is someone who's below the age of 35,
right?
Because they what I would term flight risk, as it were. They're very elusive. If they get money today, the next thing they've crossed the border and never to return again. Right. So yes, we as the Youth Council have lobbied with the government to make sure that we sort of like bring it down for the young people.
Okay.
They do not have collateral, whereas the other banks would require collateral. We have lobbied to the Empower Bank to ensure that there are certain loans that would not require young people to
provide collateral.
Like
how much? What is the quantum?
So it also depends with the request from the young people.
Okay.
And I think now what you find is because of the informal nature of the banks that started giving out loans as little as $100, where young people would maybe want to do a small business and would just require $100. They can just approach the bank, and they live with that $100. But for other big projects, it also depends with the projects, where the bank will then need to do its assessment and make sure that they protect themselves, and before they issue the money, they are certain that the young people will be able to bring it back.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, sure.
Now let's talk about governance and the youth. This is a year that a lot of countries in Africa are conducting elections, which means that the destinies of close to about more than 40 to 50 million people are going to be decided. How do you see the governance landscape on our continent on a scale of 1 to 10, from the last 5 years?
Well, in terms of
good governance,
good governance,
good leadership.
Well, I actually like to think that Africa has come of age.
Okay.
What I want to applaud African governments is the participation of young people in these political offices. I think for us, Zimbabwe just had the elections in the recent plebiscite that took place on the 23rd of what you see is young people taking political positions. But what we would also want to see is African government to allow young people to take political space. Because if you look at a lot of the constitutions of African governments, what you find is it excludes young people. Where you find if it's the office of the president, it's for people that are 40 years plus. And what that does is young people are excluded from that office. What we would want is maybe a revision of those constitution to
so
also
in other
ensure.
words, you are saying that a young person below the age of 40 should be able to become president.
That's what I think, because I think young people have got the energy to
Where,
do so.
where would the governance skills, management skills, and all of those things come from? I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, governance of what's the population of Zimbabwe?
About 15 million.
15.
Yeah.
And by the age of 35, what sort of even if you have been to Harvard, what sort of experiential skills, competencies would a young person be able to have to make that person become a president? I mean, member of parliament, yes, would agree with you. I mean, but for a president, that's a tall order, isn't it?
And for judges as well.
Sorry?
Judges, I think they also say the same about judges,
Well,
that if you are below a certain age, you cannot become a judge.
Yeah.
Well, I should like to think that they should be somewhere where they should fit in terms of presidium. They may not be the president.
Absolutely. I mean,
they may not be the president.
Yes.
But I think if we say young people are the future leaders, then let's allow them to also come on board in terms of getting the experience. They can only get the experience by living it.
Yeah, but I like your concept of youth parliament, for example, which is a critical component of your program, which is good. The question I would ask is, how are you making this kind of concept an integral part of your program, such that you have specific programs that help young people to acquire good leadership skills and all of that? Is it just a concept, or where every year people have elections, young people have elections, and then they mirror the main parliament and what have you, rather than having a major program that instills discipline, civic education, national responsibility, leadership on the young people? Is there a system, a program like that? How do you go about it?
Yes.
Rather than just the election?
So what we've done is we've engaged development partners like UNICEF in terms of doing an assessment of how this has impacted. But what I want to assure you is those that have come through the ranks of the junior parliament, I can attest that they've become very good leaders in whatever they've gone on to do.
Right.
So we've also lobbied. I've spoken about the upcoming National Youth Act, which is a bill as we speak. What we want is also to ensure that resources are given to these young parliamentarians during their tenure of office, so they leave a legacy. So, for instance, if a young person who is an MP or a junior minister of sport sees that in their community they lack sporting facility, there should be some form of resources that are given to them for them to be able to also contribute to that. But what we do is we try and expose them very much to different institutions that then capacity build them and prepare them for the leadership skills. Before they inaugurated as junior MPs, they have a whole period which they go through, which in terms of leadership capacity building. So we have different stakeholders that come on board that equip these young people with the kind of leadership.
Are you a product of the junior parliament yourself?
No, not exactly. Not exactly. I'm not a product of one, but I've actually enjoyed my tenure to see how these young people have grown up to become very successful politicians, business leaders, world business leaders as well.
I see.
Yeah.
So are you collaborating with the faith-based institutions, the Christians, the Muslims, in the implementation of some of your programs? In other words, do faith-based institutions have any role in shaping the future of the young people
They do play a critical role. I think.
And how are you collaborating with them?
As I have alluded to, we have had, I think the cousin to COVID-19 is drug and substance abuse as a scourge for us as a nation.
Right.
And what you find is we need discipline, and the faith-based institutions play a critical role in terms of bringing the kind of discipline that we would want in our young people. So, as Youth Council and as Ministry of Youth, we feed the government of Zimbabwe has come up with a national task force, a committee, and we fall under the demand reduction pillar, where faith-based institutions are. So our idea is to make sure that we bring the messages to the young people that depending on drugs is very detrimental to their health. So this is the word that is being spread by faith-based institutions. Also, I think faith-based institutions in Zimbabwe are very critical in terms of providing education. You'll find most of these schools that are in Zimbabwe are mission schools. Okay. And we work with them in terms of giving out projects, in terms of disciplining the young people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know how long you said you've been here for 3 years? 3 years. So, in other words, a time is going to come that is just the way you came, you would also leave.
Sure.
And it is said that what lasts most is not the money we have in the bank account or the buildings we build and all of that. What lasts most is the legacy we leave behind. That's your camera. If you say you have 2 children, right? A father of 2. If you went home this evening and your first child, boy or girl? Your first child, girl. Yeah. What's her name?
Juanita.
Yeah. Juanita. If Juanita said, Daddy, tell me, the day you are reposted from the National Youth Council, what sort of legacy do you want the youth, the 66% of Zimbabweans, to think of you as the legacy that you left with them as a Youth Council Director?
Okay. Thank you very much. I think, as I've alluded to, we're very instrumental in terms of coming up with the Youth Bank. I think that's one thing that I'll put in the bag and say I did this.
Sure.
Secondly, this building that you see here is as a result of our hard work. The Youth Council had no premises whatsoever throughout the whole country. And this is the first building that we purchased for the young people.
Where did you get the money from?
From we had to lobby from Treasury to get a place for the young people. And what I would want to see happen is to make sure that by the time I leave, this will be a young people's hub where they can come, exchange ideas. But I would want to be remembered for having left the youth sector legislated. What you find is, yes, we have a youth policy, but for as long as the youth policy is not an act of parliament, the issues that are embedded in the youth policy are merely persuasive. We want to have a youth act where young people's issues can be legislated and duty bearers can be called to account for. So I would want to leave office having established a youth act, and we have already done first step. And I'm sure by the time we leave, it would come into life as a national youth act for the young people.
What gives you the greatest pain in the night?
Sorry?
What gives you the greatest pain?
The greatest pain
in the night
is seeing the efforts being made by government and how young people have become addicted to drugs, all the efforts being taken to grave because of just drug and substance abuse. So what I would want to ensure is that we have concerted efforts in terms of ensuring that whatever we are doing, we are not doing it for the grave, because the drug and substance abuse is just a menace that will wipe out a generation. So what I would want to see is as we dealt with COVID-19, we also deal with drug and substance scourge.
You come across as somebody who really is passionate about the future of this country and of the continent, particularly from the standpoint of young people. What are your final thoughts? In other words, what do you want to tell the youth of Zimbabwe, and by extension, the youth of Africa? Still in the camera.
So what you see is that young people have got a lot of energy, and if anything, what I would have wanted on one of my packages is just to have a pack of Red Bull that gives me and to be in touch with the energy that young people have. But over the years that I've dealt
I guess
with,
you're talking about energy drink, not
yes,
necessarily
energy.
what you mentioned.
Yeah. Over the years, what I've seen is, yes, whereas young people have been left out in terms of the development arena, and we affirm that them and women have been left out. A lot of times when we need to engage, young people are very combative. They want things to happen for them there and there. And I should like to think that our older generation play a very critical role in terms of channeling the energy that young people have. So if anything, what I would want to commend to the young people is to advocate for intergenerational solidarity, where the older generation and young people come together and work for the good of Africa as a continent.
This has been Channel 63, and as I said from the beginning, we've been having a very interesting conversation with the acting director of the National Youth Council of the Republic of Zimbabwe, my good friend Brian Nyankwande, who I just met, but we become like buddies now. And if you have any question, we'd like to know your feedback. If you have any issues that you want us to send back to my brother Brian, please feel free to share them. If you have any ideas that you want to share, you've listened to a number of youth councils all across the continent. If there's any innovative idea you want the Zimbabwe National Youth Council to have, please feel free to share with us, and we'll make sure that Brian receives them, and then we will take them to another level. But I guess if there's one major example that the Zimbabwe National Youth Council is playing, is the aspect of empowering young people of Zimbabwe financially by establishing the Youth Empowerment Bank, which I think is very, very innovative. And I recommend that highly to every youth council on the continent. Mr. Nyankwande, it's been an honor hosting you on Channel 63.
Thank you very much.
You are doing a phenomenal job, and I want to commend you and encourage you to keep it up with your team and ensure that indeed Zimbabwe 2030 becomes a reality through the effort of the National Youth Council.
Africa needs you.